evening and welcome to the Littleton Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, April 23rd. I'm Paul Glavy, Vice Chair of the Board, sitting in for Chairman Chuck DeCoste, who is not able to join us tonight. We will be going initially into executive session for purposes of discussing non-union contract strategy and union contract strategy. And we anticipate that we will be exiting executive session and returning into open session at 6:30 to continue with our agenda. So with that, I would ask one of the board members to make a motion, and I will conduct the roll call vote on that. Mr. Clerk?
Move the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30, subsection 21A, Clause 3, to go into executive session to discuss a strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the town's unions, since an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the board, and convene an open session thereafter.
Do we do two votes, Keith?
Yeah, and also to vote,
Yeah.
to go into executives, in 1B for the
And 1B, and
non-union.
move the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30, Section 21A2, to go into executive session to conduct strategy and preparation for negotiations for non-union personnel and to convene an open session thereafter.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. As I indicated earlier, the Chair, Chuck DeCoste, has let us know he won't be joining us tonight, and our other member, Chase Gerbig, advised us that he would be joining us later on as well. So I will do a roll call vote. Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Ms. Napoli?
Aye.
Mr. Glavy? Aye. So we'll be going into executive session, returning approximately 6:30 into an open session.
How are you?
Service.
You coming in all alone? All alone. Wow. I thought there was a group. Oh, there's a group behind. Yeah, the rest of the group, all right. Great. You can come on and take the front,
Yeah, right.
the front rows.
Don't be bashful.
Sure. Just don't
Okay.
throw anything.
All right.
Throwing's over, it was fun.
I'll reiterate what we stated at 6 before we went into executive session. Our chair, Chuck DeCoste, is not able to join us tonight, so I'll be chairing the meeting, and our first order of business after organization, and we are organized, is Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll ask clerk to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I'll run briefly through the agenda, and then we'll get right on to,
We can do the
Yeah.
recognition.
yeah, we'll defer the mail, and we'll, following that, we have 2 appointments to make on the Town Space Needs Working Group, public input, members' updates, town boards. We have the Conservation Commission in to discuss approval of fee increases for the wetland protection rules and regs. Town meeting and town election, issues relative to the finalization of the warrant, the town report, town meeting prep for the May 7th annual and special town meetings, update on the status of the smart sewer project, and then various items under town administrator relative, looks like specifically here to 2 Mass dot projects. And do we have any minutes tonight, Keith?
There is.
There is, I didn't notice them. Okay, and we have minutes too. All right, well, since we do have visitors, familiar faces, I think we saw them all Saturday, or a lot of them, see you frequently, actually. Keith, you want to address the robotics team recognition topic?
Sure, and first I just want to put up some photos that I found at your Facebook page from Saturday that looks like a fun time was had.
Yeah, we were happy to have full attendance of our board there. That was great. We thoroughly enjoy supporting you in every degrading manner that you can think of.
So the board, once again, was great sports this year, and it was about a year ago that the Board of Selectmen recognized the robotics team for the first time because of the progress that you're making, and I believe going off to the national championships at the same time a year ago. So we're happy to have you back here again as you head off to Detroit. And you're leaving this week? And who's going? Is everyone going? Is everyone?
Is there a
So that's great.
spokesperson here?
Be glad to hear from the group if someone wants to talk to us about what you've all been up to in the last year and what you hope to accomplish at the championship.
Well, over the past year, we've done a lot of outreach in our community, kind of spreading the word of how STEM is helpful to all kids from really any age group around the town. And we started up the FLL teams, which have transitioned some kids that were in 8th grade this previous year to actually joining our robotics team. And they've all been just really into STEM. Overall, they really enjoy it. They're learning a lot. And with Aiden here, he was one of the kids on the FLL team, and now he's one of the most devoted kids on the team, and he's just progressed so much.
That's great. Anyone else who wants to share what their aspirations are for the group and what you've been up to? So,
You're leaving in 2 days, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
World Championships
World
that you're
Championships.
heading to, and the community's also proud of what you're doing. I know you have local sponsors. I know this was a Patriot Beverage that you the event was at. Over the weekend, you've got other local groups that are supporting you, I believe, and just the community, your community is taking an awful lot of pride in what you're doing. And so we prepared a motion
Can ask
to
the,
have the board officially enter into the record of their
Right.
meeting how we feel about you.
Yeah, we want you to go out of town feeling that you know the town is entirely behind you, so this formalizes that, and I'd ask the clerk to read the motion for us.
Move the Board of Selectmen vote to congratulate the Mechanical Advantage Littleton's first for inspiration and recognition of the science and technology robotics competition team 6328 and wish them success at the World Championships in Detroit, Michigan.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Will you continue to impress us and make us proud and go bring back gold medals or whatever it is you do?
Very much appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? I know nothing about what goes on. Do you go one-on-one against somebody, or is it certain things that your robot has to perform, or?
So basically what happens is that a game's released, and then basically 3 robots compete against 3 other robots, and they all compete against over single objectives to earn more points than the other alliance. So it's a 3-on-3 kind of style.
Sounds very much like the Jetsons.
And is it true
Dating yourself.
that your
Yeah,
competitions are live streamed?
Yeah,
Is that right?
yeah.
Could you, would you mind to send the town administrator the link to the live stream so he could distribute it to us?
Yeah, that would be great. We'll be happy to tweet it. Yeah, yeah. Great, thank you.
And put it up on the website, too.
Right,
right?
right, absolutely.
All right,
Great.
great.
Well,
Exciting
thank you all
stuff.
very much, and thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Keith,
Nobody
maybe
minds, the team is packing up because our.
Oh, sure,
daughter's leaving
please.
Tomorrow morning, so.
Don't stand on ceremony. No.
To go deal with that.
Very good, thank you. You're very kind to come in tonight.
Keith, it looks like we can get through the mail pretty
Yep.
quick.
Yeah, just a few things briefly. We have invitation from the Sustainability Committee to a couple of workshops on the 15th, and it says it should be the 22nd, I'll change that, of May, workshops for the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness, so-called MVP program. We have audits from the auditor. We've got hard copies. I sent out the electronic copies last week. Typically, the Finance Committee hosts a meeting, and we attend it jointly, so we're in the process of setting up when that might be.
With the auditor present, right?
With the auditor present, right, with Dick Hinkstrom will come and go through the report. And then lastly, I just wanted to share a couple of things that I picked up at a 495 Metros Partnership event at the State House last week. They issued a new study, sort of a market overview for the 495 Metro West
This was fascinating.
region.
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
part
it was a
part
really
of,
well
part of the
done
report
document.
showed that the highest absorption rate, which I had to look up what that was, Joe, I'm sure in the real estate business knows what it is, the highest absorption rate of all the towns in the region was Littleton, which means that, you know, the property's moving, which is significant.
For those of us not in the real estate sector, what is absorption rate?
It's how, basically how fast the house sells. I looked at MLS this maybe 3 weeks ago, to rate down what just what was available in Littleton, taking away new construction about 2.5 weeks ago. At that point, there were only 3 other houses for sale besides new construction.
No, I looked up the definition as well. It's, you divide the number of sales by the number of available homes, and it's, so There you go. And very, very impressive statistic, though.
But this report, just in general, how widely circulated is this, Keith? Because I would suggest there's a lot of boards that would benefit
Yeah,
from
we-
seeing this.
Yeah, we can get this
Planning
information
board,
out.
master plan
Yeah, we
committee,
get this
business
information out.
association would probably like to see it.
Yeah, we can absolutely do
Yeah.
that. this-
And you know who else ought to look at this? Because these graphics are presented in the way, we could probably present the details of a sewer project a lot better than we have
Yes,
been doing. I
absolutely.
think our consultants might benefit from
Yeah,
seeing.
this was a great thumbnail profile of Littleton. One was done for each of the towns in the 495 Metro West Partnership group, and so we can certainly share that information.
I didn't know we had so many software developers in Littleton. I mean, based on this count, there's over 1,000 software developer types in town. Which maybe explains part of what we just saw in front of us.
I mean, we have, there's, 2,400 IBMers
You know,
at,
that would include the daytime.
Anytime
Yeah,
employees
yeah.
got-
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
So that's what I had for the mail packet.
Okay. Terrific. And you will circulate that digitally,
We
Keith?
certainly will.
Yeah, Thank you.
Yep, certainly will.
All right. Our next item, pretty close to on time, is the Town Space Needs Working Group Citizen at Large members. And by a vote and then a reconsideration by this board, we've decided on 2 citizen appointees to join that committee. We have 3 applicants. I think it's fair to say they're all at some point or other familiar to the board because we've met you all in various capacities, but unless the board objects, my suggestion would be to ask each of the applicants to just tell us a little bit about who they are and why they're interested in the committee, and then we can, we're left with the often unfortunate task of appointing 2 of 3 excellent candidates, but that's the job we signed up for. So is that fair, board members?
That's
I
fine.
like it.
Okay. All right, then I'll just do them in the order that they appear on, in the packet here. The first one is, first resume or application form I see is Judy Grandy. You're welcome to either sit there or come forward, whatever you would like to do.
Hi, everybody who doesn't know me, I'm Judy Grandy. I've lived in Littleton for 33 years, and I've been pretty active in various committees and volunteer opportunities around town. Ray and I started, I think, the first thing we ever did was sort bottles and cans at the transfer station. 33 years later, I'm still doing it. But I love this town. I mean, I love everything about this town. It's growing a little fast, but I've been working with the conservation people. I've worked at the transfer station. I can't even remember how many committees I've been on, but you have a list. My background is I have a master's in marketing from Boston College. I have done work as a technical editor and run a technical publications department for an engineering company. That was my first job out of school. I have, the past 15 years, I guess, I've had my own company, and I do, right now I'm doing grant writing. That's pretty much, I've cut back a lot, so I'm just doing grant writing. I'm on the library, Friends of the Library Board as a member at large. I am very involved with the library and with, I feel like I know this town, I know a lot of the people. I think I could be a valuable asset to the team because I do know a lot about the area and about the needs that the town is facing and some of the intended or optional items that we're going to be looking at. I did look at the report on the Board of Selectmen's website, but it was the same numbers that they presented in January, I think, and those numbers, I think we decided were way off. So I don't really know what numbers we're talking about, but I know that I'm very dedicated to helping this town and doing what I can to make these decisions wisely and with forethought, especially with the growth of the town. So I don't know what else to say.
Let me just, well, I'll defer to the board then and see if there's any specific questions for Judy.
Just one, Judy, out of all the committees you could have volunteered for, what did you see as the space that, why did this catch you as being special?
I think because I see that the town has some very serious choices in front of them, and I want to be part of the decision-making in those choices because I think I can contribute to that.
Thank you.
Any other specific questions for Judy, or?
I do, and I'll probably ask all candidates.
Yep.
So, sorry, Judy, you
That's
get it first without
That's all right.
broadcasting the question, but what do you see as the biggest challenge with our space needs? And there are certainly no shortage of challenges, but what's the single biggest one that you think we need to?
I think the single biggest one is sorting out what the options are for the library, given that we have a $5.5 million matching grant coming from the state, but what we can do to accommodate the seniors in town, because they're obviously looking for some more space and some more activities. I think that the town offices have to be, the situation with the town offices has to be addressed, because it's, I mean, they're pretty important to us, and as the town grows, so will the town needs and the town offices. So I think the biggest challenge is going to be trying to decide how to satisfy the needs of those groups with the resources we have and the people that we have in place that can accomplish those that analysis of the needs. We're not going to make everybody happy. That's obvious. It just doesn't work that way. But I think with some firm numbers, first of all, some firm numbers and some careful examination of what each group's needs are, I think that we can come up with a solution that will at least accommodate the members of the groups that are involved.
Okay, and Cindy?
I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm set too, Judy.
Keith, anything?
All set. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Right. Next in our order of applications is from George Sanders. Mr. Sanders, if you'd like to come forward.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for inviting me here this evening. I saw a transplant to Littleton. I built my home here in 1997. So typically I've been here about 20 years. I'm going on 21 years. Have 3 children. They're all in the school system here. I think Littleton, when I was looking around as a place to live, I thought Littleton was the ideal location because they had that still rural setting compared to some of the other towns that got a few of the fast food restaurants and so forth in. My main concern here is that the town has a need here for more space, and this has been going on for quite some time. When I was the chairman of the COA board for about 7 years, and been a member on the Disability Commission here, I've always advocated for seniors here in the town, working with the Friends as well. I see this committee being in a positive light in terms of the town as a whole by putting this together, because too often in the past, they sort of kind of did things and they really didn't have the people or group study. I remember when they did the field over here. They didn't have people, in place putting information out at the town meeting. So a group is a good thing because it can collect a lot of data and report back to the board, in this particular case, the selectmen here, to give you input as to short-term, long-term, and intermediate type needs that the town has. And of course, I think there were 4 scenarios that they spoke about, and it seemed like each one of them was $25,000. So I think that the insight is that being able to listen and understand what the problem is in the town, that is an undertaking that everybody has to have that type of knowledge to know what's going on in the town and what the needs of the towns are. It's just not, you hear a lot of talk about the senior center, but the senior center is not the only one that has need, neither the library has been the only one. One of the most crucial issues is that how do you pay for it? No matter what you come up with, how do you pay for it? And I think conveying that information and getting the people, the taxpayers, behind whatever projected goal that you have here, if they supporting it, that is the key factor. That's how this town will move forward on this need, by having things in place that are reasonable, because taxpayers don't want to be burdened also when it comes to having to dig in their pocket deeper to come out with monies to pay for projects. So I think that the way that we go about dealing with the needs of the space in the town is that we have to go slow. We have to take it easy as we go down the line. We have to be able to discuss the things that are very important to the people and getting the input in from the people, and just slowly moving forth with the items that we have on the agenda as far as coming up with a list of what are the spaces that we need. And then you're going to have to sort of kind of prioritize those spaces, and you're going to have to sort of kind of tackle that as a group as to which is first, second, third, fourth, prioritizing it. And I think that with my knowledge and wisdom, being around on this earth for a few years here, serving in the federal government, I was in contracts, and I also was in personnel and into management, multi-million dollars, over $500 and something million in contracts that I was a contracting officer and a contracting officer representative for the federal government on diplomatic status there with the embassy in Thailand. And I moved transportation. Transportation is a secondary field, which my primary field was in the nuclear biological chemical field. So I have a good knowledge about space when it comes to how do you get this in and what do we need, so forth and so on. And I think the priority that the town needs here is to be able to come up with some reasonable objectives here to meet some of the need. We're not going to meet all of them, but I think at certain points, there are certain things that are the most critical thing that we need to do. Then those are the items that I think that we have to convey and sell to the people, the taxpayer, that the town really needs this. For instance, the fire truck. Well, we know that that truck is old. We spent a lot of money on it, and the fact is that they just had a ladder collapse, and it was just lucky that it fell against the building in Boston there, and the fireman was able to get off on the top of the building. Otherwise, it would have came to the ground, and there's a possibility he would have got killed. They just put it back in service for a couple of days. So there are things, because this town is growing, that we need to grow with it when it comes to the safety aspects of this town. So we got buildings now that's either 4-story or 5-story. So we need to have that capacity that we can offer service to the community here so that we'll be able to provide safe service for the people that are in these buildings. And other than that, I just think that hard work, being an attentive listener, I believe that you can get more accomplished with an attentive ear than a waggish tongue.
Okay. And if you don't mind, I'll take that point to ask the board members whether they have any specific questions for you.
Basically, you answered my question, but I'll ask it again, so I'll ask the same question to everyone. Why pick this committee of the committees that you might have volunteered for?
Well, I be very candid with you. My objective when I heard about it, and I knew that the selectman was going to do it, so my first thing was, do we have an ordinary citizen on there? And I was talking to this gentleman to my left here, and he would say, yeah, well, you know, they sort of kind of picked and pulled. I said, well, my point is, do they have really any ordinary citizen on this board? And he said, well, I don't know quite exactly what to make up. He gave me a few people that was on. So I said, well, you know, I think anytime you start talking about spending a large sum of money at any time with regards to when it's the government, I think that the ordinary people should have a place somewhere that they can convey and speak other than people that are wearing dual hats. For instance, elected officials or appointed officials. I feel that having ordinary citizens on there, there's a wealth of knowledge, make no mistake about it, there's a wealth of knowledge in this town. And a lot of it is right in the heads of the people that ordinary, don't say too much, probably don't come to the meetings, they probably look at it on television a little bit, so forth and so on. But the most important thing, when they come out to the town meeting out there, I find that, you know, it's good that if we can convey information early on, it helps eliminate some of the problems that you have at town meeting eating up time. So this is the type of committee here that I find that I wanted to see, and I fought very vigorously with the chair to please reconsider and reappoint at least 2 people that are ordinary citizens on this board so you can have the input from their perspective where they're not wearing any hats and so forth. So I said, at least I'm fighting for this. I said, the least I can do is sign up for it in case somebody doesn't, you know, put in for it. At least I was going to be there because I believe in what I did was the right thing.
Thank you.
Chase?
Same question, Mr. Sanders. Biggest challenge faced by the Space Needs Study Committee?
I think the biggest challenge is that, one, is to really identify what are the key priority items of space that is needed in this town. And secondly, I think that we have to look at as to how would that be implemented in terms of where would we get the funding? Are there grants or what have you? If we're going to have to do a debt exclusion to go in and get money and borrow to put certain things in place, keeping in mind that we have a certain amount of money that we sort of kind of call free cash, but really it's just overpaid taxes that the taxpayers has paid. But I say here in the town of Littleton, they have did a tremendous job in using the free cash that we have available here. So some small crucial projects that we need, we may very well have to, you know, go to the town and ask the town and see how we can work that in the budget, how we can fit it in the budget. It's going to take a lot to accomplish all the space that the town needs, because if you get into rehabbing, they said this building got asbestos in it, so that's a major concern because there's special people that have to come in and deal with taking that out of here. So I think the biggest problem, whatever we come up with, will be, number one, identifying it, number two, how we implement it, and where do we get the money.
Cindy?
I don't have any questions.
All right, I've kind of been boxed in now since everybody's, I don't have any questions either. Mr. Sanders, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
And our third applicant is Kathleen Nolet.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We're inside on such a nice night.
Okay. You've seen the protocol here, just have at it.
My name is Kathy Nolet.
My husband and I moved to Littleton 34 years ago, and we chose Littleton by drawing a circle on a map. I worked here, he worked there, and where they intersected was how we ended up here. And I remember the Houghton Building being the site of the library and taking our daughters there. So I've seen the library grow quite a bit. Our children went to the schools, and Littleton has grown tremendously. And I think when I see that kind of growth, good, bad, too commercial, or need more housing, need more senior housing, I'd really like to be a part of that discussion. I'm not a native of this town, but I have a sense of what the conversations have been most recently about the need to evaluate space. And my background is as an educator. I have been a teacher, a principal, and a teacher in higher ed, training teachers to become teachers. And I've got to see a lot of building projects going around the state like that. So I think that's who I am.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Knox?
Same question. Why choose this committee over other committees that you possibly could have asked to be on?
Because I think it's going to be fun. I think that sometimes you've got to approach stuff with a light perspective, knowing that you're going to disagree with some people, agree with others. You have to be open to new ideas. You have to be ready to participate in creating new conversations. But I really think it would be fun, and I don't think we have enough fun work going on. So, in addition to that, I have had some experience in evaluating school buildings as space. Should we renovate? Should we build new? Should we secure a space that is an old feed factory, which is what I did in Lawrence? And something that I learned along the way is that it's really important to be aware of your mission, what you want your programming to be, because that will dictate the kind of space that you need to accommodate the program, rather than grab space and have it the other way around. I'm not saying that would be the right perspective in all cases, but it's something that I've seen work and not work.
Thank you.
So you're not advocating for a, if you build it, they will come approach, you know? Similar question, but because you've got experience with space needs studies, what sort of challenges or big challenges have you seen on other space needs evaluations that you think are relevant to the challenges we might see?
You mean that I've worked with?
Yeah, that you've worked with.
Well, right now, we're sitting in an old school building and thinking about plans for it. And it seems that the town offices, the COA, Park and Rec, and the seniors are kind of growing out of it. That there needs to be some programmatic growth, and there needs to be the space to accommodate it. Plus, you're thinking about the future. So, one challenge can be building it for what you have today, or retrofitting it for what you have today, instead of taking a longer look. And I think when you take a longer look, sometimes you get some of your best ideas, unique ideas.
I love that answer, thank you.
No questions.
Well, staying to form, I'll say thank you, and stick around, because we'll get into deliberation right now.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, board members, what do you think? Joe, you want to start off at the end there? Since nobody was offering, I'll start that.
No, it is.
It's nice to have these problems, to have three
Yeah.
quality people try to fill, they're gonna fill two positions. I favor Mr. Sanders because of the work he did to get the two people on, besides all the things that he had talked about, the priorities to implement things, and he understands that things just can't get built, and where's the money gonna come from? It's just not saying we need this, we need this, we need this. He knows it has to be looked at in the long range for all the departments. And I'm up for the other two, I'm wide open.
Chase, any initial thoughts?
I tend to value the diversity of experience in Ms. Grandy's background, in that she's worked with Parks and Rec, she's worked with the library, she's worked with COA, Historical Society. So her ability to see the needs of lots of different constituencies is compelling. Furthermore, Ms. Nolet's experience with other space needs, I think, in my mind, elevates those two candidates. It's not an easy choice.
Cindy?
So I agree. Again, thank you for coming forward. I liked Mr. Sanders' approach to what's before us, just his thought process, not only, it's not just about the spaces needed, but it's about setting priorities, taking the budget into consideration. And his background, I thought too was interesting, and I feel that he would be an asset to the committee. I currently serve on that committee along with Chairman DeCoste. I like Kathleen's experience, having already been involved with space needs. And the one thing I really like about Kathleen is the point of appointing a citizen at large to this committee was that they had no affiliation with any department currently serving, any members currently serving on the existing committee. So that's why I favor Kathleen to sit on the board.
Okay.
The committee.
My initial thoughts are not altogether different from statements I've heard. I do attach value to the fact that Mr. Sanders was an advocate for us having citizen involvement and carrying that through beyond just his advocacy, just the notion that I want to make sure that these positions are, similar to what Cindy just said, is far away from boards that are already, in a position to advocate for their own needs. To that end, I know we just appointed Kathleen last summer to the Council on Aging. George had served there years ago. All three members bring intriguing backgrounds. I know they all contribute, but to my mind, the folks that have been active citizens but not recently involved in town government the most would be Mr. Sanders and Ms. Grandy. But, I'm happy with any combination of the three, but we've got to resolve this mathematical problem here.
How did that pan out?
So, those are just early preferences. I'm open to the board's suggestion. Do we want to vote one position at a time? Do we want to further discuss them? Does anyone want to make a motion for one or two? It's within our purview to do either way, Keith. Is that right? Yeah.
You could do one and then...
So I'm open to, I don't have a preference on process.
Just to help you, you had 3 votes for George Sanders, so
Okay.
I didn't know if that would help the situation move
And
on.
then 2 apiece for each of the other 2?
Chuck?
Pick 2, 1, and Joe can go either way.
And Joe went with the cagey political move.
I opened up that way.
So I don't know if you want to get 2, 1.
Okay, well, thank you for doing the math, Anthony, and keeping score. Appreciate that. Does someone want
I
to,
make a motion that we appoint George Sanders as one.
Second?
Okay, then we do have a motion made and seconded for one of the positions. It is for George Sanders. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, all opposed?
Nay.
Okay. I believe that was 3-1, so we have one appointed. All right, now we have another position to go, and,
So I guess my only statement is Kathleen served, you don't currently serve on the COA board anymore. And then Ms. Grandy currently serves on the,
Friends of the library.
they're Friends of the Library, the Friends, okay.
not a town board, but still
Right,
it's
yeah.
affiliate.
Yeah, right. I just wanted to clarify
Yep.
that. I'm just going to reiterate my position that, Kathleen, to me, is the most impartial candidate, just because she did, although she served on the COA for a year, really the purpose of the citizen at large, I thought, was to bring forward somebody that really, a sole outside perspective to the space needs from a citizen, solely a citizen's point of view. She's been in town for a while. I know she's been in tune with what's going on in the community, so I'm going to stand by
Is that a motion, or
my,
are you making a motion?
oh, can I do that?
You sure you can?
All right.
yeah.
But, I mean,
This is
I'll-
for
if
debate.
you would indulge
I will
me
certainly
indulge.
to present the counterpoint, believe it or not. I guess in terms of my perspective, the reason that I tend to favor Ms. Grandy is that she's able to, if you just look at what she's got here, bring a very intuitive understanding of what all of these different constituencies and groups need. And so that's why I lean on, the work with obviously, the Historical Society isn't represented in terms of space, but Historical Society, Parks and Rec in terms of the work that Ms. Grandy and her husband did with Castle in the Trees and maintaining that and understanding intuitively those needs. And then, of course, the library itself. So that's diversity of experience and perspective, I think, is another strong reason to support someone from outside the community. And I don't tend to hold Ms. Grandy's affiliation with the Friends of the Library, I would say, against her. Yeah, I don't view that as, given the rest of this, view that as a
Right.
negative.
Right, I guess what I was saying is, all of the departments you just mentioned, majority of them already are represented on the committee that we have formed. That was why I favored Kathleen Nolet, because she doesn't, they're already spoken for in some regards. Their voices, not that their voices are being heard, but their input is, and experience with those departments is already being represented before the committee that we've already formed. That's why I was thinking that Ms. Nolet would be a better fit for the committee, so. That's my
Mr.
counterpoint.
Knox, any additional thoughts down at that end of the table?
No, I think both good candidates. I've known Judy for a while. She could certainly add a lot to the committee, but I am impressed with Kathleen that she's worked on space problems before, and that's what we have.
Well, I don't want the moment to pass without acknowledging that maybe we should give some attention to somebody who's worked with loaves and fishes. Just that biblical parable alone should be helpful in the financing of these various projects. So maybe that should go in Judy's column as well. Anyway, we need a motion to move forward, or we need maybe an offer to reconsider at a later date when we have the full board here. I'm not advocating that, but it is an option. So either we get a motion now, or we might want to entertain letting Chuck in on the final decision.
I mean, I think that, I'm going to put you on the spot here, Paul. I think that may come down to your perspective here. In the sense that,
I'm at the
Depending
mercy,
on
I'm
where-
at the mercy of the board, whatever
where
a
you
motion is
fall.
always in order. Yeah. Huh? Where do I fall? Oh, I think I indicated a preference for, not a personal judgment, but just I think Judy's varied background in the fact that she hasn't been on a town board recently, sways the balance in my mind.
Right.
well, with that in mind, then I think it may make sense to defer this until we have a
Right.
5-minute
I was just going
report.
to say, just because Chairman DeCosta is the chairman of the committee that
That's
we're
a good
appointing
point.
them to. So I think maybe we should defer it.
Somewhere in the country, he's watching this meeting on his laptop, and he's going, damn. Okay, well, we didn't think this would be a nail-biter of a meeting, but it looks like the consensus of the board is to wait for Chuck to come to fill that remaining spot. We'll obviously let you know, ladies, when that is, and probably at our next meeting, wouldn't you say?
Our next regular meeting is after the election.
So it may not be Chuck.
But we do have we have a special meeting next Thursday,
Right.
meeting with the planning board.
I mean, could we do it
FinCom.
at the next special meeting?
Oh,
I
yeah.
guess I would
Yeah,
love to.
Yeah, we can schedule anything we want on that, yeah.
You can do it, it's just you'll either be sitting with the planning board or the finance committee when you do
Right.
it. If it's next Thursday night, or it'll be as town meeting is beginning at 6:30 on 2 weeks from tonight.
Of those two options, I would say we'll try to do it next Thursday.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, ladies, we do have a complicated schedule next Thursday where we have two joint meetings in succession, one with the planning board, as Keith indicated, and then also with the finance committee. Somewhere on that night, we will work in this vote as well. And we'll hope to have a full board here then. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on our agenda, public input and members updates. So on any topic that's not already on the agenda, I invite any public input. Yes, Mr. Prue?
Yes, Mike Brew, White Pine Drive. Actually, I'm Commissioner of Park and Rec as well. We met last week. Our Assistant Director, Tim, was here a couple weeks ago, I think, and enlightened you guys on the second floor possibility of the bathhouse. So we discussed that option and all the things that he talked about here and some other things as well. So we would like to explore that route, and we would like to flush out that as a possibility. It has a lot of potential benefits for us and the town. Our hangup is the $400,000. We are hoping that town meeting approves that for the bathhouse, but we wouldn't be able to, we don't think we would be able to use it in time. So kind of looking for some guidance as far as how we can approach this and, explore that possibility, but at the same time not lose that money. I don't know if,
Keith, you familiar with this issue?
we did email the CPC chairman last week. We haven't heard back yet. But, we were looking to schedule a meeting with him
Okay.
to see if we could get some input from them.
Anthony, did you have something?
Yeah, so they are exploring doing the second floor and
Yes.
maybe freeing up some space for something down at the other end. The $400,000, my understanding, that would be, hopefully be approved at town meeting for this project, would be still allocated. So if it was decided that there was a will of the town to go with the second floor, then that's capital money that can just be added to the following year. It's obviously something that you won't be able to get started in September, but my understanding is that money wouldn't go away.
So if we go down the road, if we,
Nick would have to confirm that.
Yeah, I think as described here, it would really be for the Community Preservation Committee to say, are they willing, and Andrew's here from that, not to put him on the spot, that are they willing to have their money being held up for whatever period of time because they're setting aside $400,000, which isn't going to be spent?
right.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
That's a tough sell.
Since it's their money that we're proposing to spend in this direction, we really need to get their
Yeah, I mean,
their
the
feedback first.
alternative is that we're not going to be having any town meetings. There's no other takers for that money between this town meeting and the next one.
That we know
So
of.
you're not losing any, if your plan is not to spend the $400,000, then our plan should be not to give it to you until you're ready to spend it and do that at the fall town meeting, if you
So I guess
had
that's,
another plan.
that's the kind of input we're trying
Yeah,
to get.
I mean, that's a
And
practical advice.
all of those CPC funds were recreation. There were no unassigned CPC funds.
I think some of them come from undesignated, but I'd have to
Okay.
double check. It might be some amount, but the lion's share is certainly
The
recreation.
overwhelming majority of it
Yes.
is
But it's,
designated recreation.
and I believe that there's money, there's an appropriation, you already have an appropriation for design, which hasn't all been
Yeah.
spent, right? So you can keep going. You don't, you can keep going if the goal is to come up with a final plan and then go get the money. You're not going to miss a beat. In fact, we're going to have a discussion about the sewer and the same thing a couple of minutes.
The only other question I'd throw relative to this on the table is, does this potentially affect, if, say, they were not to go for that money now, the statutory obligation of CPC to distribute the money and...
10%?
Yeah.
No, the requirement, we would be all set, I think.
I don't think we're going to have an answer for you tonight, Mike, but we...
Okay. Well, maybe you guys can discuss it.
Well,
Well,
I think we're going to
first
need to have the CPC to discuss it.
Yeah, it's the
Well,
Community
right.
Preservation Committee, which I guess we should invite to the joint meeting with FinCom
Right.
on May 3rd, so, to settle it.
Maybe help us get some sort of a solution from them.
Yeah,
before-
the Selectmen and the Finance Committee are meeting on May 3rd at 7:30, and I think at the fire station. And the purpose there is to finalize recommendations for town meeting. This is in that category.
That's one of them. So
we
you would
oughta-
be well served to have
Yeah,
Park and Rec
we will
there.
add that to the agenda for May 3rd at 7:30.
Okay. I have one other item, if I can. So I should be taking this up with the school committee, but I can't get to their meetings on Thursdays. I have lacrosse practice on Thursdays, my wife works late, nothing that no one else deals with, but I can't get there. I've been trying to. Before, I watched their last meeting about school safety and student resource officers. I sent them a letter advocating for another student resource officer. I've heard from a lot of people around the community, and I think there's a lot of support for it. I don't think it's anything, I'm not looking for, and the people I've talked to aren't looking for something in place for September. But we know, through the course of this next year, when you guys are, this time next year, a little bit before, you're talking about budget issues.
Well, we start the budget discussions in the fall, so you'll be
Right.
well advised to get your input in, for the next fiscal year.
Just want to put a bug in your ear, kind of talk to residents, see how they're feeling about this, and then, throughout the course of this year, in the fall, by the time it comes to approve a budget next year, my hope is that we have funding for a student resource officer.
I think, I'm trying to recall where the conversations come from, but I'm fairly certain school committee members are already discussing that. I mean, it's not a part of the
They
budget.
talked
Yeah, it was
about
part of
it
the
at the
school
last
committee
meeting.
meeting last.
Yeah.
I couldn't really get a gauge on
Yeah, there's
where
a
each of them stood.
proposal, the Rep. Arciero has a legislative proposal.
That's right, yep.
Which would allow retired police officers to work as school
Without-
resource officers, which might be a very, very practical way to
Right. yeah,
provide
saw
some
that
more
as well.
coverage, yeah.
Okay. Thank you on both accounts. Mike, you're probably well advised to show up on the 3rd, where you get a chance to address at least one of them, and two, another opportunity. I think the school committee will probably be in attendance too, Keith, on the 3rd, or
I don't know.
don't know? Okay.
We'll
Likely,
ask them.
budget-wise, likely. All right. Any other citizen issues? Mr. Sanders?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is on item 7 on the agenda here, is the Littleton Common Small.
Well, we're going to get to that, at that time. If you don't, this is really an opportunity for unagended topics to come up. But
Okay.
you get a chance to speak at that time, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no
Thanks.
problem.
Okay. Board members, Mr. Knox.
There's a lot of things that happened this week. I'll let other people talk about it, but I want to mention that the Patriots Day, the Historical Commission and the Historical Society, they both put on a nice program where our chairman did speak at that. And I'll let someone else pick on the robotics later on, because Cindy was the one person.
Cindy was the winner, right?
The winner, so she wants to talk about that. And then on Jet Field, Cindy was down there. We had the dedication of Jet Field, and Tony Prue did an excellent job. It was probably the right length. It was impressive to see all the young women, girls that were down there, and it was cute how they brought out the younger players holding hands with the kids in the high school, so it worked out very well. So it's, if you go down there, the whole complex is absolutely beautiful. You can only stare at it sometimes, and we have people coming from out of town now that say, take a look at this. Why can't we have this? When we used to be going places and saying the same thing. And as far as the softball, I was involved in softball for a long time. I don't know if there's another field around that can compare with what we put in down by Alumni Field. So I want to congratulate the town and everyone that put the program on, and thank you to everybody.
Chase?
Want to take note of the fact that the town cleanup day yesterday picked up something like 600 bags of trash.
Wow.
200.
They were everywhere. Everywhere you went.
225 some odd folks out and 600 bags. And you know, DPW opened up yesterday to allow them to dispose of that trash at the transfer station. So it's a heck of a community effort, and the organizers of that should be commended. And furthermore, Parks and Rec did a great job of supporting.
Debbie?
Sure, so I'll talk about the robotics. Pie in the Face fundraiser, that was, I guess I was the winner, I guess you can call it that, but actually it was really a team effort. I loved how everybody came together. We raised some considerable amount of money for a great cause, so
How much?
Over 3,000.
over 3,000, so we doubled what was raised last year. So I'm thankful to everybody who chipped in and supported us so that we could get pied on Saturday. That was a lot of fun. The kids really enjoyed it. Chase's kids especially enjoyed getting to a little pie in the face to their dad. Touching on the ribbon cutting for Jet Field, I played softball in Littleton High School. I was captain my senior year. I played college softball, so it was really fun to be there and see all the young girls, the young ladies, and the next generation of softball players enjoying that beautiful, beautiful facility, really seeing it complete. Really brought everything together. It was the final piece. So I really enjoyed that a lot. I wanted to mention that the Friends of Alumni Field are still selling bricks. If you noticed when you walked into the facility, you can have a personalized brick, and all the proceeds from that go to the maintenance and renovation of Alumni Field. So they have a Facebook page, the Friends of Alumni Field, if anyone wants to contribute to that effort to maintain that facility and purchase a brick. That would be much appreciated. The other thing I wanted to just mention is the Littleton VFW is having a Cinco de Mayo community event on Cinco de Mayo. It's free to the public. There's going to be a DJ and food, and it's really just a way to give back to the community and say thank you for supporting our veterans. So the Littleton Friends of Littleton VFW are doing that. And finally, I just wanted to touch base on the Littleton Coalition Against Addiction. Myself and our incoming Chief of Police, Matthew Pennard, we visited a facility there in Tewksbury called Clean Slate, and it's a addiction recovery facility. It's really well run. The staff there was excellent. It was really a wonderful connection to make for our community. And they will help anybody. Either you're struggling with addiction, if you have a family member or a friend that needs help and you don't know where to go, call Matthew, or actually Mike Chamberlain at Clean Slate. And he's familiar with the LCAA, he's familiar with Littleton, and he's willing to help anybody that needs help. So that was an excellent connection and resource that we made, and I appreciate Sergeant Pennard facilitating that connection. So that's all I have to share.
Okay. I know now how Chuck feels that as the chair, you've covered everything, but boy, it's, what a, just to think, that's all just 1 week. You know, you've got the Earth Day, and I was going to give a special shout out. I think I'm accurate of this, that Casey Kaldenberg was the primary driver behind that, but boy, a lot of people participated in that. Patriots Day, our Historic Commission keeps that wonderful event alive. Andrew, kudos to you folks, and I guess it was the Boxborough Minutemen who came to Littleton to join up, which is appropriate because that's what they did historically back in 1775 as well. The robotics pie event was terrific as well, and I don't know if we could double it again next year, James, but we'll see about that. And since everybody is throwing out their bona fides on Jets Field, I got to say, you know, in addition to playing a lousy baseball myself, there is a Little Leaguer. I coached for 10 years in Little League and won a championship, Glaves Braves, on that field. The opposing coach was Coach Woody Wadzinski, Chief Wadzinski's father, and his younger brother was the pitcher for the poor Dodgers who left the field in tears that day. And so I'm I'm delighted that you folks especially put the effort in to keep Jets Field alive. And have trivia on Jets Field. I remember, and maybe Joe, you remember, perhaps a little young for you, but years ago, a women's softball team played there that Martina Navratilova used to play on because she was playing for the Boston Lobsters tennis team at the time and used to play softball in Littleton on weekends.
Wow.
How do you like that?
Who knew?
I knew. We used to see them. Our Little League team would show up and they would be Martina Navratilova. Anyway, busy week in Littleton.
Mr. Chase, one quick
Yeah,
thing.
sure.
If you see me go into my cell phone, it's not because I'm looking up school, as I have a granddaughter who's just taken to the hospital, so I'm keeping track of that. So if you see me pick up the phone, that's what I'm doing.
All right, but if you do know the score,
It's 0-0.
from that. Bad. I'm sorry.
Football as well.
Braves.
Yes.
Okay, we're a little behind schedule, but we've got
Conservation.
Conservation Commission members are here with us and staff, and if you would prefer to sit back there in the last row, you're entitled to, but you're also welcome to come join us up front here. The commission has looking for approval for fee increases under the wetland protection rules and regulations, and we have been briefed on that by memo, but we're happy to have you here and tell us all about it in person.
We're only in the back because we have a meeting that started as well, so we just want to be able to answer.
Okay.
Did everybody want to step in, or you want me to step in?
That's
All right, so when we were back here, we were here in August of 2016 for the bylaw regs. You had suggested that we look at the fees as well, and it took a while, but we looked at the fees as well.
Well, maybe just for our audience, we know who you are, but if folks could introduce themselves.
Sorry,
appreciate it.
Amy Green, Conservation Coordinator.
Julie Rupp, Conservation Commission.
Anna Mayer, Conservation Commission.
Sarah Stewart, Conservation Commission.
Andrew Smargo, Conservation Commission.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. So I gathered information on a bunch of the surrounding towns and where their fee structures were. And except for Westford, which was sort of an outlier, Littleton fees were pretty low compared to the rest of it. So I recommended bringing them in line with most of the other towns around there, which about doubles the fees. Right now, based on a rough calculation, we collect about $15,000 a year. That's what kind of what's average over the last 3 years. So this would about double the $5,000 component of that, which is what's collected under the bylaw. The state fees are about $10,000, and that would not change.
And the reason that the Conservation Commission is here is because the statute that we operate under authorizes them to set reasonable fees, but because they are an appointed board, appointed by an elected board, the elected board has to approve the appointed board's fees.
Apologize if I missed it in your presentation. When was the last time we addressed this? Do you know offhand?
You know, I don't. I don't know when they were initially set. It's been a while.
It's been a while since when I first started.
It's been, if I may speak, Sarah Stewart, so it has been a while, and we've had quite a bit of discussion about this really revolving about time spent on this and being proportionate to the fees that we felt that, and Amy did a great job by really looking comprehensively of other towns.
Mm-hmm.
And with that in mind, if you don't mind,
Sure.
a couple of questions I want to dive into. One is the crossing fee, the Category 4 fee. I guess, having done some crossings, $725 doesn't strike me as commensurate with the level of effort. At least, perhaps the crossings that I did were particularly complex, but $725 seems remarkably low given the amount of work required to do a crossing correctly. Did you guys go with half of the DEP fee there?
We think that we would concur with you on that, but we also felt that we wanted to make sure that we were being fair in staging some of these up, not doing everything drastically as well.
And since it was still similar to the surrounding towns, we felt uncomfortable getting it too much higher. And we've kept the single-family homeowner-related costs, low comparatively to the other costs.
Bolton doesn't appear to be very shy.
Yeah, no, Bolton is not, and I think Boxborough actually And they have a very weird fee structure. I didn't go through examples of every single thing. They just keep throwing numbers at it.
My other question was filing after violations. Is there, that seems to be appropriately aggressive, I guess, for filing after violations. Is there anything that we can do there to perhaps make it more aggressive?
I think we would be supportive of your support to increase some of these. We just want to make sure that you're on board with us. It is a difficult part for us afterwards because these enforcement orders are, they really zap our time with Amy and all the commissioners as well.
Again, coming back to my concern, having seen the level of effort required to deal with something that comes in after a violation has been issued, to say it's only twice the level of effort compared to the original filing, I think probably understates the level.
Yeah, it's a tough call on all of these, because some of these, even the filing after violation, can be somewhat routine. But then you get the outliers where it just takes a lot of time.
I can just ask a question on your process. I assume you deliberated this at posted meetings and it was agended. Did you have any input from public? Anybody attend? Have any feedback?
People were present, but there's no feedback.
Okay.
And people who are current and future applicants have been present.
So they're aware of
Yeah.
what's being
And I've been
talked-
telling them, I said, you're getting into for the fees change. They know.
Yeah.
And then a question on when these fees come into force. So let's say something is currently permitted, the change to the order of conditions fee, does that apply to their upcoming order of conditions, or someone who's currently going forward, their order of conditions would cost the old
The fee is due when they submit the notice of intent before they get the order of conditions, so that wouldn't change. But that particular project, when they come in later for certificate of compliance, I would assume would be under the new fee structure.
Yeah, I meant
So anybody who's
certificate.
like already in the chute, they're not gonna have to suddenly pay more.
Any other questions, comments?
No.
Is the board satisfied with this as proposed?
I am. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
happy with where it is, but wouldn't object to something more aggressive down the line either.
How are you getting on without him, by the way?
It's terrible. I will say, we hope to be in front of you with some bylaw regulation changes shortly. We're still hammering those out. So we hope to be back soon.
They really traded up when Julie took my seat.
Well, that's true.
All right, well,
Like you have to say.
then I'll entertain a motion.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to MGL Chapter 40, Section 22F, to approve amendments to the Wetlands Protection Rules and Regulations, Section 2.5, Application Fee Schedule as adopted by the Conservation Commission on April 9th, 2018.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Any further comment? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now you can spend the rest of the evening upstairs.
Absolutely. I also want to say, at some point, we hope to get in front of you on the Cloverdale parcel to talk about some things going
Okay.
on there as well.
Thank you.
Okay?
Good night.
Good night.
All right, Keith, let's see how much time we can recover on the town
Yes.
meetings and town election topic.
Yeah, next, it's a procedural motion. The town clerk has presented us with a warrant for the annual town election, which will be on Saturday, May 12th, and the motion awaits.
So we need some motion, right?
Mr.
Move the
Clerk?
Board of Selectmen vote to execute the warrant for the annual town meeting election to be held on Saturday, May 12, 2010, from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. in the Charles Forbes K Gymnasium, Littleton Middle School, 55 Russell Street, and to direct that the constable post said warrant forthwith.
Second.
Okay, then the motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Very good. Keith, In your town report.
Next, I will unveil this which is the cover art for the annual town report, which really hats off to Anthony and to Diane and to a great group that has been working on this. It's, I think we're entering a brand-new dimension in town report, lots of graphics, lots of color, lots of photos, lots of information, and I'd really let Anthony tell us, to say a few words about all that he's been up to on this project.
Yeah, so the goal this year was really to be able to win that Mass Municipal Association for having the best annual town report, so, which will be awarded next January. But, you know, when I first mentioned it, we had a group of volunteers that wanted to join the committee, and we're committed to really changing the way that we do business and creating this document, which very proud of the work that the committee did. They really just took the vision to a whole new level. And Diana spent countless hours on this, and I think she was ready to whack it a couple times, and I kept asking for changes, but really happy with the way it turned out. I think it's something that this community is to be very proud of.
I wasn't aware that this new approach was taking place, and I'm telling you, I'm tickled. It's great. It's very impressive.
I like how it parallels the website overhaul and improvements
Right.
as well.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to submit both. We're going to submit for our website and I think it's by September 15th, and the town report.
Oh, good.
See if we can get a bit more recognition.
And just for the record, in addition to Anthony Ansaldi, we want to mention Diane Dickerson, Diane Query, Kirby Dolak, Nancy Glencross, Diane Douglas, and Nancy Hilsinger, along with the help of all the boards and departments working on this. And also Sarah Gordon, junior at Littleton High School, who
Yes.
did the cover art.
Yes, we had a contest at the high school, and the winner was Sarah Gordon, a junior at Littleton High School.
That's
Yes.
excellent.
So she couldn't make it in here tonight, so we'll have her in another selectmen's meeting.
Yeah. Or have the moderator
Or
call her to recognize her at town meeting when
Right.
we're handing out copies.
Oh, nice.
When we're handing out black and white copies of the report.
That was
We
my
didn't
next
go- We didn't go
question.
overboard. We have a limited number.
we had a limited
There are
number
some
of
citizens
color
that
copies.
demand it, I'm sure, you get requests, maybe, well, Joe and I anyway, I get them, and they don't want to hear about this, it's all available online, they want a hard copy, so.
Yeah.
Delivered to the house.
So, yes.
Yeah, but right now, and with the, as of right now, the electronic copy in color is posted at the town website.
It is posted on the town website, so you can go through it.
Okay,
And,
but you do have a certain number of hard
We'll
copies.
have 250, just like last year, 250 black and white versions of this, and then we'll have a small, limited number of color copies.
Yeah, for our archives, for the
For our
library, for
archives,
the,
right,
you know,
town
so-
clerk,
and for the MMA.
For the MMAs, they need
to contests. So hats off, great job, great job to the team.
If I get in here as a mayor of Munchkin Land. Back in October, trunk or treat, there I am.
You allow yourself to be put in those positions. That's very good.
It's excellent.
Terrific, thank you, Anthony, and to the whole committee, and, great.
And we tweeted out the link, and then we'll do a news blurb to the town website subscribers, where they can get the link to,
Yeah, it's
probably tomorrow sometime.
Yeah, it's on Facebook, and it's also was tweeted, so if you're following us on Facebook and Twitter, you got the link.
Great.
Okay.
Okay, next on town meeting update, we wanted to call to folks' attention that the town meeting report, voter information, most important part, please bring this with you to the May 7th town meeting, and that has been
Probably
delivered.
the May 3rd joint meeting too, probably, as well. Right?
Yes, right, yeah, certainly the selectmen should plan to bring this will be, for the board, we'll be putting out the town meeting booklets, I think probably now in time for the May 3rd meeting would be our target date to give it to you and FinCom. So that is, I think that all we needed to.
Yeah, you covered slides, anything you want to point out there, Keith, or any board members have anything on the slides? All looks good to me.
The only thing, and it's less related to town meeting and
Yeah.
more to do with the town election, is to make sure folks know that the Rotary Candidates Night is Wednesday, right?
This Wednesday night.
In this room?
In this room, right?
In this room,
Yeah.
yeah.
So at what
Be-
time? Do we know?
It's,
No one left in.
it says it.
Any Rotarian, you were gonna,
Seven.
Mike,
Seven,
six?
is it?
Says 6 or 7?
Seven.
7,
Seven.
okay.
Seven? Oh,
Thank you.
okay.
So Rotary Candidates Night, Wednesday,
Okay.
7 o'clock, right here.
Very good.
Thank you.
Also, scores tie 0-0.
I don't have to-
Yeah, I'll be at Wellesley College with Al Gore on Wednesday night.
How many Al Gore references we get tonight?
Just the one, I'll stick with one. It was only first tonight
Well,
during the meeting, so.
Anytime he wears the little green
Yeah.
lapel pin, that's kind of an unstated.
So, let's see, so what we also have is we have our special meeting on May 3rd to do last-minute items on recommendations for town meetings. So we don't have any, we do have some new information for you tonight, but it's on the very next item of the sewer
Right,
update.
yes.
And so that's why I'd suggest we just move on to that one.
All right, so with that, the chair, a month or two back, has asked that this topic be on the agenda every week and till town meeting, and it's appropriate because there seems to be some new information every week. And I'll defer to my colleague, Selectman Gerbig, if you want to update the town on the most recent activity regarding the Littleton Common Smart Sewer and what our current thoughts are.
And we've
on
got
it.
Kent
Sure,
with us.
that's right.
Oh, yeah, and that's right, I'm sorry,
So
thank you.
I'll give a quick update and then I'll probably kick it over to Ken to have him sort of give everybody the rundown of what we see and where we're going. But what it comes down to is that the town and we as a board committed to doing this as a data-driven exercise. And part of that data was reaching out to prospective candidates to hook up within the sewering district that we defined. In fact, we expanded the sewering district to incorporate more residences than we had in previous iterations because our understanding was strong preference from residential property owners to participate. We put together financial estimates, included that with the survey results, and frankly, the results from a lot of the residential property owners was tepid at best. And so that has caused us to rethink some aspects of the sewer. And then we have reached out to the two largest commercial property owners. IBM has essentially indicated to us that it would not be, in their opinion, cost-effective to participate in the sewer based on the costs that we put forward to them, largely because they have an existing system that they believe they can extend the use of for another, what was it, Ken, 15 years before they needed to do major
10 to
overhaul?
15, they're projecting, and it's our point of contact has been IBM's landlord.
That's right, it's
Hudson
not,
Advisor.
IBM doesn't.
Yeah, but it's,
actually-
and Hudson has been in contact with their tenant about, that they don't need additional space on site. We thought perhaps one of the reasons why you might want to hook up to a sewer is so that you could refit your parking lot with a new building instead of a wastewater subsurface system. But
So with that in mind, that's sort of the bad news. The good news is there's actually a core very much similar to the core that we've seen in a number of surveys, the commercial core right downtown in the Common, that is very much in favor of, based on the survey results, of connecting to a sewer. So with that in mind, the plan that we had put forward that could involve something like a $30 million sewer system doesn't look like it's going to be feasible, and the sewer committee, as of last Friday, has recommended that what we do is we revisit the sewer, a smaller scoped sewer that is targeted exclusively to the core of the commercial district downtown. We're looking in the order of 100,000 gallons per day, give or take. 100, 150, so somewhere on the order of 1/3 to 1/2 of the current sizing. With that in mind, we've recommended pulling back the sewer design funding component of the borrowing article from town meeting, which will allow us to then put forward a plan that now looks at this much tighter, more geographically compact sewer. With that, I mean, that's sort of the highlight, we see it's very much feasible, but we're also doing this, like I said, in a data-driven way, and if there isn't the participation to drive it, we've committed to not shoehorning something in that doesn't make sense or people don't want to participate in it, so.
If you don't mind, Kent, just it's worth noting, and we mentioned this before, after a certain threshold point, several models work financially and system-wide. And so, the survey, as Chase said, had us reach out to people where we understood there to be interest. It's outside of the area where we really anticipated we wanted it to be. It's not so much. That being said, it's kind of the common discussion that while we're scaling it back to where we originally intended it for, the intent, and I hope, Kent, you will speak to this, is to design something that can be modular and expandable as we go forward. If we run into the eventuality that people or abutters or neighboring areas, once they see it up and running, are interested in getting involved, that they express interest, we'll be in a position to expand to address that. So we're probably in a better place, for having gone through that exercise than we would have been had we not done that. The other thing is we were already planning on coming to the town at the fall for the construction vote. We have monies. What is it, about $300,000 to $400,000, Keith, still from previous allocations?
We had over 400,000 accumulated, and we have certainly not spent down that.
Right. So when
About half has remained, so we won't run out of money between now and
Right.
October, bringing it to fall town meeting.
Yeah. And we honestly, at this point, until we refigure some of those things, we're not going to know what that number should be. Right. So anyway.
That said, and here's another thing that I hope Ken can speak to with more authority than we can. Let's call them right now, back of the envelope numbers suggest that a scaled down sewer, scaled down in terms of size, it still presents good economic value and is still within the range of numbers that we've presented to the folks who have expressed a favorable perception of the sewer field.
And also, it shouldn't, this does not negate the smart sewer components either. They can be done at this scale either at the treatment plant, even on a smaller scale. In fact, it just, as long as there are customers there for the energy that's generated, that should work. And it shouldn't, presuming that everything that happens between now and the fall doesn't go awry, we shouldn't be in a position where we need to alter a prospective implementation schedule either. But, who knows? Ken?
Yeah, you guys covered it pretty well. I think the notable points are, as Chase started with, the support from the businesses other than the two major partners is surprisingly notable in Littleton, compared to what you'd expect for a baseline. Very, very strong, and I think that shows that there's value to the project. I would note probably the residential support as being more typical of a project that shows high costs. At this point in time with early value, I don't think it's really all as negative as maybe you might be perceiving it. We just don't have a lot of residential support because single-family residences usually look at that ticket number and say, wow, not convenient for me right now, and that's how they judge. But that being said, there's still a few folks who have expressed interest financially, because they recognize that this is a better deal than having to replace your septic system long-term. And if you have a property that's going to be difficult for, and you've seen just outside of the center, there are properties that have mounted systems. I mean, that's still in the economic future. So, Paul, to your point about keeping it, as a future item, I think that's a lot of wisdom, that we would have the ability to maybe someday expand. But the initial focus will be very much, as you said, Chase, will be to kind of retool a little bit, refine, get the project size down to kind of what our phase one was going to be originally in size, which was about half of what we were going to be. And then use that to kind of rebuild from a base where we are financially and back check where we are against the numbers we've been providing. But I think we both pointed out that the neat thing that we've looked at to date is we've made a bunch of changes already, and each change we've made and each time we've scaled back some of the residential areas, the financial model has shown that we can pretty much keep it in about the same financial region that with the numbers that we've given. Certainly, we've run no comparisons that have had us drive up the cost significantly, which is great, but we do need to kind of be sensitive to the fact that we're looking at a bit of a different beast. And I think the main things that will be very different for this project as we do this are, while expandability for a small residential street or some additional business interests in the core will be reasonably easy to accomplish. What I do think we need to focus on a little bit is the fact that it's probably going to be unlikely that we're going to be able to just let all of a sudden IBM or the Point decide they have an issue and they need to come in. That's probably not going to be able to happen, one, in any type of timely manner, because that's a significant increase for the facility size. And two, we do have to establish a cost structure where, the value of that initial thing that we build is going to be based on supporting the common. And it won't be available for someone who decided to stay out of the equation and see if they can get the cost to drop and then be opportunistic and hop back in. So there is some balance needed in that whole discussion of what we'll do with the capacity in the future. And I think with those challenges, we have the ability to absolutely retool what we're going to be. We did talk a little bit about some of the principles. The good news is we have continued to appear that we have a usable site for groundwater discharge at the high school fields. It looks like we continue to have a usable site at DPW and the LELWD site for the actual quirk. That site continues to be very promising for all the types of things we will eventually want to do with the quirk, all the energy generation pieces. I think it offers the ability to have some expandability. But one thing that the committee asked that we do is to look at the potential of resiting. Maybe there's because we're now scaling down, there's a potential that we want to go back and look back closer to the center of the common. And the good news is the methodologies we did presented here at the board in the past, the screening techniques we've used, we can do that pretty readily. And so we're going to go through. One of the nice things about the time is it'll give us the chance to just recheck, see if we have something else that might come into play that can help us keep that cost measure down. And in the end, our retool will be targeted very specifically at what you talked about, which is to keep the financial elements essentially the same, so that we won't have to change the deal for anyone as far as how much it's going to cost for the betterments, how much it's going to cost in principle for the user charges as we see it, and the way those systems will work. I think that's very promising right now. Obviously, this is relatively new because we only just talked about it Friday. So, but I think we had a really effective, good discussion where I think to a man, everyone walked out of the room saying, "This is great. This makes a lot of sense," and it's not a stop. It's let's refine. It gives us a good chance to really do that well.
And it was all guys.
Yeah.
It was all guys. Yeah, I'm not being
regrettable
sexist.
terminology, but there's the reality of the situation, unfortunately.
I was walking out and Cindy was walking in and I told her she would be more than welcome upstairs.
We briefed.
I'm amazed that she didn't join you.
She got a full briefing as we exited.
That did happen.
Yeah.
One thing I would add is that, we haven't, I don't think, or at least as of last Friday, hadn't parsed the data to see if there were clusters of residential that still did make sense to connect. So I don't want to undersell our commitment to doing residential, but what we're not going to do is run a pipe all the way across town to connect one 3-bedroom residence. But, that's still part of this retooling. If, 10 folks down Adams Street want sewer, great.
Yeah, so
Let's go.
just by scale, and the reason that, just so you understand the background by scale, if we were to run and pick up, 10 homes down Adams Street, that's a couple of thousand gallons, maybe 2,000 gallons, 3,000 gallons. If we were to try to pick up IBM, that's 40,000 gallons. So that's why I say
Right,
that
right.
there's a scale to which we can make those decisions and that the system will be somewhat portable later on. And we just need, that's what we have to kind of get our hands around to decide what that scale and portability needs to be so that we make a sound decision. And the more we err towards making it more expandable for very bigger flows at a lower cost, the harder it's going to be to maintain that financial growth we're trying to do. So
Well,
we're really looking to try to make sure we can do the right thing and in particular protect the businesses that really need the project and make sure that that really protects their interests and keeps the financials online for them. But I would not, I would agree with what you just said, Chase. To a degree, I would say, if I was a resident and I was in the general common area, I wouldn't panic that, oh, I've been dropped out of the program.
Yeah, I
We're gonna
realized
make-
that I had
Yeah.
led with, we're paring it down to commercial, which isn't
We're
necessarily
going to
100%.
make sound decisions about what the limits are, and there's no wholesale cutting out, with the exception of areas that very clearly we're asking to opt.
There was consensus on shrinking the map, but not a consensus as to what the new map's
Exactly.
gonna look like.
Right, exactly.
Well, and particularly for Joe and Cindy, because I know I get this question a lot. This also speaks to the difficulty of why we're focusing on the common rather than the lake area first. I think everyone understands the need for something in the lake area, but the way these cost time for residential property owners makes it very difficult to roll it out. And we've seen that, the cost wouldn't get any better if we did this for the lake area.
And that manifests itself too in the opt-in, opt-out issue. While we haven't resolved that one fully, it's less of an issue in the commercial property, or we hear it less than we did with the residences who, at least on an individual case basis, had problems with trying to meet a proposed, decision-making schedule, and then the finality of it. Not so much a big deal with the commercial properties.
Yeah, we talked about one of our financial focuses, Paul, being maybe more of a deferral program for connection rather than a true opt-out, which seemed to be one of the bigger concerns stated by some of the businesses, which is, hey, I have a septic system that's still good for a while, maybe I'd want to defer a couple of years, but I want to eventually be able to be in the system.
Right.
So it gives us the chance, I think, to look at some slightly different opt-in, opt-out financial models with the concept not being vastly different, but still being, integral to the process of giving people some choices.
I know there's folks in the audience that are likely to want to speak. In fact, Mr. Sanders indicated that earlier, but I want to see if there's any board member questions or further comment before I turn it over to the audience. Okay. And just to be clear, what we're proposing to do procedurally, Keith, jump in if I get this wrong, is when the article comes up, Chase again will give an explanation as to what where we're at with the process, which is, basically preserving our right, to speak to it, and then withdraw the motion.
No, you want to vote to withdraw it.
Yeah.
You want to amend your recommendation to be to withdraw that article.
Right.
And at town meeting, the moderator, would let Chase have the microphone to
Speak to it,
explain
yeah.
why. But I think going into it, you procedurally, you want to have withdrawn the article. So there's no one's in any doubt going into town meeting, are we
Right.
going to vote on this?
No, all
Really? Are they
we
gonna-
want to make sure we do
Are they
is
gonna change their mind?
that people get the explanation the same
Right.
as.
We can certainly, and we can cover, I think it would be important for the board tonight to, and you still got three, you got three that can vote on it, because Mr. Knox is recuses, but.
You working on a motion then to?
Yeah, I think that your motion,
Well, let me
Yeah,
get some
yeah.
audience input while
Yeah.
you're working on that then. Mr. Sanders, did you want to still speak on the subject?
Yeah, on this $30 million
Yeah.
plan,
Well,
there was 150,000 gallons per day. Was that the maximum capacity for the size of this plant?
At the $30 million cost that you referenced, that's not what we think we'll ultimately see now. That was at 300,000 gallons per day. So 100 to 150,000 gallons per day. If you scale it, you're talking 10 to 15 million.
Maybe
Yeah, roughly, it would. Don't hold me to round numbers.
So you had enough business in here to go to 300,000
No,
per day?
no, that's what we're scaling back from that.
I understand, but you initially had the plant set for 30,000,
Yeah, 300.
and it was 300,000. My question is, did you have enough business here to produce the 300,000?
With the, based on our original projections and the participation that we thought we would get, yes, we had, actually a little under 300,000, but we wanted to make sure we had room to grow into that 300,000. The data has not borne that out for us. The participation, particularly IBM and The Point, they each bring 40,000 gallons per day or so. And so just taking those two out of the equation takes 80,000 off the table right away.
So I heard that the selectmen had made a decision that if anybody passed as coming online with this, that wouldn't be an opportunity for them to come back later and come on?
No, that was one of the
We,
top.
we hadn't made a firm decision on how that would be approached. That issue has to be balanced because we want people to be able to come online, but we also don't want people to be able to wait it out and not pay into the system. So we hadn't resolved exactly how that opt-in, opt-out would ultimately manifest itself.
And I don't think that with EPA, I don't think that if you put the system in, you cannot allow somebody to come in later if they decide not to come in when you build the plant. It would seem logical that you would go back and calculate the cost for them to come in as an equal share into coming online with the plant.
I defer to Kent here, but I believe it's done both ways in a lot of communities. It's not a mandated thing. You can do it either way. And we're trying to figure out what's best for the town.
Yeah, so I think what you're trying to get to is if you did connect later, if there was some reason, compelling reason why someone would go to connect later, there would still be an equal cost share. It would actually be an incremental cost share that would be a little bit higher for a similar community. Because most communities that do this, a similar property, commercial property, residential property, typically than one that connects initially. If they connect 5 years later, there's a cost adjustment, time cost adjustment, and that typically is applied. It's usually done with a system of fees instead of the initial betterments. But I think the goal of the opt-in was to try to get people to decide whether they want to be in the system or not. And the folks who really decide they want to be in the system, the vision is they will never be in the system. But like Chase said, we're still trying to work that mechanic out. It's probably less applicable now that we're dealing with a more commercial core. We feel like most people want to eventually be in the system in that core. And the biggest concern is for a few folks who would like to maybe defer for 5 or 10 years or something before they connect. And that would be, I think we can work that economically.
I know that when Lunenburg put their sewer system in, they tied in to Fitchburg. And I was on the committee there when they tied in on there, and Walmart was going to put in a septic system in, so they wanted to come in and get on the system, but Lunenburg said, no, you can't get on the system, but EPA came back and said, yes, they can get on the system. So they ended up giving them $75,000 just for Walmart to come in on that. I got a little bit of knowledge about the sewer system.
Well, we
operation.
welcome your input in the months to come, George.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? James?
James Kennedy, 50 Gilson Road. I'm also on the Littleton Business Association, and had a few basic questions. How are the surveys coming in so far?
Well, speak to that.
How is in terms of response rate?
Yeah, commercial, response rate, residential.
I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but the response rate, just the pure response rate, favorable or otherwise, for the residences wasn't particularly high. The commercial properties, we had a higher response rate, I believe, but I think we still have some holes in there that, this will also give us an opportunity to reach out to those property owners, commercial property owners, to make sure they've got all the information that they need and wants, and perhaps haven't received a survey.
Kent might have some of that data right here, anyway.
Well, based on that, when do you think you'll have a new district that we can, a lot of anxious people who have property who are really looking forward, residential and commercial, and some are a little bit concerned, would love to know.
If they're
So what I would-
downtown, they're, at the common area, basically, you're in, right? I mean,
So
Kent,
what I would say is our goal, and again, we're trying to do this a little bit thoughtfully, so we can't like make instant promises and then go back to it, but I think from the business standpoint, our goal is to serve everybody who has an interest in the property, in the project. The challenge is there are a couple of the residential streets where there are a couple of folks at the very far end of the street that would like to opt in, but a greater number of their neighbors on the closer part of the street to the common want to be out. And I think those are the places where we're struggling as to how quickly we need to get there. The biggest challenge is to draw the line so that we can get everyone who we don't just think hasn't just expressed their interest coming in, but that we think has not expressed an interest to opt out. So our goal has always been to find the opt-outs and try to get them out, and then trim the areas back so that even anyone who's still in question, because the feeling we have, a lot of the members of the committee have reported, is they've heard verbally from some folks who haven't really sent the questionnaire in, but they do feel strongly that they'd like to have the convenience of being able to tie into the system. And I think our goal is still to preserve that vision of getting everybody in.
probably the biggest chunk, Kent, that would prospectively be out based on the input would be the other side, the north side of the highway, right?
Yeah, mostly residential properties up there. There's a good number of commercial properties that have said yes.
Yeah, but without the IBM and the point in between them, it's kind of a bridge too far at this point in the.
What'll likely happen is if we do keep the rest of that flow in, that would become the last phase, because it's, like you said, Paul, it's a little bit harder to get to. And there's certainly less interest north of 495 than there is to the south side.
Thank you.
And we still want you to hold your forum on February, on
Yes,
May
the Littleton
1st.
Business Association.
If only to underscore that this is a, it's a organic thing at a couple of levels, and while we fine tune it, we need to get the feedback from your folks, your constituency.
And the other element of that that's very important is that the Master Plan Implementation Committee, the other sort of
Right.
advantage to pushing this off, but also the other reason we want to continue to hold that forum and engage the commercial property owners is because the Master Plan Implementation Committee is looking at zoning changes,
Just
looking at
engage a consultant,
development.
too.
Yeah, exactly, and how those things could change going forward and how a sewer could fit into that. So there's a lot of moving pieces here. The sewer really has, again, to steal Mike's analogy, that's the revitalization below ground, but the revitalization above ground is one step behind.
So if
I was going to ask Mike if he wouldn't mind speaking to the consultant piece, but if you have a follow-up.
Well, I just want to
James,
finish on your thought about May 1st. I just want to make sure everyone knows this is both residential and commercial, and you can come. It's at Oak Meadow School at 7 o'clock, May 1st, and hope everybody who has property in the proposed sewer district can come.
Right, thank you, and thank you for your help throughout the process. Mike, do you want to speak to the master plan implementation?
Yes, very, very briefly. My first request is that you're cooling off our audience. Mr. Saldi, would you mind turning off the air conditioning? Thank you. I'm sorry.
It's the loud air conditioner, too.
Yeah, what'd you say? What'd you say?
Ambient noise levels.
No, it wasn't the noise, it's the cooling off effect. Just to summarize, so that you know what we hope will be helpful in this process, the implementation committee is hopefully about to launch in the next 2 to 3 weeks an operation with the assistance of some very good consultants to address the following, and that is, what's the current, shall we say, future economically, socially of the common as it now exists with its existing infrastructure, and what are some reasonable alternatives based with this as the baseline. We have up here already on your wall, and what are, shall we say, extensions of that, what densities, what sorts of businesses, and what's the economic and social impact of those. And then, once the town has had an opportunity, both within the common and for the residents in general have a chance to weigh in, the next component would be, what, if any, zoning changes have to be made in order to achieve this? So it may be nothing, it may be extensive, I have no idea what it is. All I can tell you is I've become a student of other towns and cities around the country that are doing something like this. And the only thing I want to say is that you're very wise. We were very wise move, whether you were, as we're led to it by circumstance or not, to not include the two particular characters that decided that they're not ready to do it. Because this gives you a range of freedom economically and otherwise that you wouldn't have otherwise. I'm pretty sure that would have come out one of the first recommendations, but we're already here. So I hope by the time we reach the fall town meeting, that the town will have already seen, had an opportunity to ponder and respond to what the options might be.
Well, we were close enough that we actually had to discuss whether or not to defer. I mean, it mostly had to do with the significant changes in the scope of the project. So we're not, we probably won't be long before we're able to roll out another iteration of the map for people to kick around for a longer period of time than they've had with the current one.
Well, I mean, just consider what we've done in the last 6 months. I mean, not only has it been the feasibility study in terms of siting, the economic model, the public outreach components of, but there was a whole investigation of the discharge site and all of that that's gone on that, for the next 7 months between now and fall town meeting, will be.
That's already been done.
Yeah, right, focused on all that stuff, and as Ken said, the discharge site reevaluation is.
There's nothing, it's just that I don't base everything on a static model, that everybody who's there today is going to be there 6 years, 7 years from now. There isn't, there are changes that occur when you do something like this, so that's, we're heading into new territory.
Do we have a mechanism in place to track how many surveys are outstanding and?
Chris is
follow up
keeping,
with those?
Chris
Yeah, I
Stodden
mean,
is keeping
there
track.
are only a couple hundred property owners, so it's not a sophisticated system. It's a
And
Excel database.
specifically,
No.
Chris is keeping track of it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Chris Stoddard, who's on vacation this week, is keeping track of it. I know I saw 3 came in today.
I thought at one point there was discussion about actually calling up property owners that hadn't returned the survey yet. To
We
follow up
definitely
with
will
them.
need to do that over the summer. In some cases, there's some individual properties that have complications of their own, and a quick answer to the survey as written does not satisfy their own particular needs. I mean, that's, I don't want to talk about anybody's individual cases, but,
And furthermore, IBM and Hudson is probably the most complex, but not atypical for some property owners in that there are layers of tenant and property managers and property owners that we've had to break down a little bit. So,
I mean, that process took about 3 months for us to get through on
Right.
550 King Street. But we got an answer.
Sometimes it's as simple as financial housekeeping for a small business. They just don't have the financial housekeeping in place right now to be able to commit.
Right,
And maybe in a year or two, they would.
right.
any other input, questions, comments? I want to be able to bring Mr. Knox back in the room, but we've got to address this motion here first at Keith's suggestion.
Yeah, so here's the proposed motion.
I know it's appropriate, I just wish it didn't leave the room for misinterpretation that this is, taking the project out of the.
Yeah,
can we change withdraw to defer? No, I suppose we probably
No,
have to
because
say withdraw.
it's procedural. The question is, will voters going to town meeting be able to vote on this or not? And by withdrawing it, they won't.
Right.
And there's no
Okay.
fear that somehow, someone will change their mind. and-
Right.
Then I would move that the Board of Selectmen vote to withdraw the request for $1.5 million for design of the Littleton Common Smart Sewer in Article 8, Item 8F of May 7, 2018 Annual Town Meeting.
Second?
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? Okay. We will be back. I guarantee you, somebody will get up in the fall and say, I thought we voted to stop this back in
Thank you,
the spring.
Kent. Appreciate it very much, and welcome back, Joe.
Okay.
One.
What's that?
One.
We just voted it all in.
Oh, is it? Okay. What period?
Thank you.
Halfway through the second.
Okay.
Yeah, you're all set. Yeah.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
All right.
Hopefully we
Keith,
get
couple of
through
DOT.
this real quick.
Yes, yes.
There's some updates to talk about from MassDOT and the MBTA and MART, but one of them requires a vote and the others will have some quick updates. But there's the opportunity to apply once again for a Complete Streets grant. We've gotten one grant for about $400,000, but we've not gotten the last two grants that we applied for. And after doing some soul searching and asking MassDOT what would get funded and looking at what some other projects were getting funded, the smaller the better. Maynard got one for $129,000 or so. I asked Chris Stoddard to put together a recommendation, look at the approved Tier 2 prioritization plan and talk to MassDOT about which small projects might be extremely competitive. And this is what he came back with as recommendations. So I wish we could be applying for more. I wish we could be getting more, but I'll certainly settle for a grant if this is a higher probability of doing it. So. And as you'll hear about next, we've got some serious money that we're getting from some other sources too. So.
Is the nature of their preference for small grants just because they can sort of plug a few in,
No,
they have a couple extra
no,
dollars?
No, it actually has more to do with programmatic, and we look at, for example, the $400,000 that we needed to do Russell Street sidewalk fit in just perfectly because it was, even though it was a big number, programmatically it fit to a number of things that it addressed schools, it linked business area with other parts of town. So it got a lot of points. It scored very well. Okay. Of course, we were only when we applied for that in the very first or second round. There were not a lot of other communities that had qualified under the Complete Streets program. So we were early in. We got a big grant, and it's becoming tougher, more competitive. So the advice is that this targeted grant would allow us to hit a lot more of the criteria for funding.
The second part of it shows a crosswalk. What's that a crosswalk to?
From one side of, on the Yap.
Yeah, but what's on either side?
Yeah, there's a sidewalk on the other side of the street, and
Oh,
you've
there
got
is?
the Yap Conservation Land.
All right.
Yeah.
I thought the sidewalk had stopped.
Yeah, the sidewalk is on the opposite side of the street, so this gets you over to that point, and that scores very well.
I thought it stopped way back by PDF's house for some reason.
So this is over by Peter's Beehives.
Yeah, I drove past there
Past the
just to make
beehive.
sure there was.
That's the Beehives, okay. Okay, any further discussion, questions? If not, I will be entertaining a motion. Oh, yes.
I would, Anne Grace, H2 Neshoba Road, I'm also a member of the VPAC. I'm very happy to see that we're still engaging with Complete Streets, and we'd love to support you in any way that we can. Would like to know just a little bit more about what's on the proposal here. There's a crosswalk to the Yapland, and what is the other one?
Well, there are maps.
Yeah, I can read that. So the other one down Goldsmith is installation of, quote, share the road signage, add pedestrian crossing warning signage, speed monitoring signs, and flashing school zone signs down Goldsmith.
Sounds good.
Right?
Yeah, thank you. If not, any further input, I'll entertain a motion.
Move the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize submission of the Mass DOT's fiscal year 2019 Complete Streets Tier 3 grant program for $78,000. With the approval of Tier 2 prioritization plans project for number 5 Goldsmith Street improvements, $66,000, and number 8 Newtown Road pedestrian mid-block crosswalk, $12,000.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Great. Keith?
Very good. There are no motions or votes on the next on the next three updates, but I thought it was important enough to bring them to the board's attention and to just maybe get some feedback. First is that you recall about a year ago that.
Can I just?
Yeah.
For anybody who is interested in what that is showing but can't see it, this is all on the website, right? At the town administrator blog or?
It will be, yeah, it'll be at the website. The scope of this area is Foster Street from Taylor Street to Balsam Lane. And again, we're taking it's a $3.6 million project, which the MassDOT's Project Review Committee has approved. You recall for the TIP, so-called TIP, Transportation Improvement Project, which is how we funded Goldsmith Street, just for reference, that the TIP project works that the town is responsible for bringing the project to 100% design phase. So it's about a 10% cost, $360,000. The board last summer had approved us going to the 25% design phase for this project. We asked Chris Stoddard to look at not only the Complete Streets program, but to look at how we could achieve goals through other funding sources, and we've been advised by the Boston Region MPO, so-called, that you can go after big money through the TIP. We did it on Goldsmith Street about 10 years ago. And so we're pleased, when we met with MassDOT folks, they gave us some good advice on how to make the request particularly competitive, so it would score well. The fact that it's near the commuter rail station scores very highly. It would be for pedestrian improvements and bike lanes and the reconstruction of the road. But also, if we choose to do so, and this is rather new news, that the planning board is acting on, is about to issue will be voting on its decision on the K subdivision. And that will include a donation of 5 acres from the developer on which the town could construct, on which could be constructed, I would say, maybe a net increase of 50 commuter rail parking spaces. That particular plan would envision, however, that Grimes Lane be realigned in order to create a safe T intersection where
Rather than that
between the
meander.
it would bring Grimes Lane farther away from the railroad crossing and therefore make it safer, and it would come out across from where the entrance is to the commuter rail station. So it'll be a safer T operation. The problem is that the realignment of Grimes Lane costs about $750,000. The good news is that we could amend our TIP project to include the realignment of Grimes Lane. So we want to explore that as a possibility with MassDOT. Again, it would score very well because it's all about. It would make the railroad crossing safer. It would make the commuter rail entrance and exit safer, and it would help access 50 additional parking spaces. So we're very interested in pursuing that as part of the Foster Street TIP project, and we'll have more to report in the future about whether we can do that or not. But it's a lot of things coming together, a lot of moving parts in this that we're happy to be.
So in terms of that revised application, would that then seek to raise us from 3.6 million to 4.3 million?
Yeah, basically to whatever the number works out to be, and that's a number that we can finalize as we pursue further design plans. I mean, that we could, if we're in the 25% design phase now, we could just add in, well, what does the realignment of Grimes Lane look like, and have a better cost estimate of what it is. The 750 was Chris's off the top of his head estimate for discussion purposes now. So that is in the works. Update on MBTA commuter rail parking. We've had a couple of meetings now with MBTA and our state legislators. One of them was held here on March 30th. There was a follow-up meeting on last week in Senator Eldridge's office. Rep. Arciero was there along with the MBTA's Chief of Revenue. And the reason for that follow-up meeting was that the $1.5 million that the MBTA had pledged a year ago, somehow there's some question about where that money is and how much of that money is available. And that's the kindest thing that I can say publicly about that. And we're not letting the MBTA off the hook. We were told that the money was available for Littleton. The person that told us to us is no longer at MBTA. She was just promoted to Deputy Secretary, Undersecretary of Housing and Economic Development. But it's not she who says the money wasn't there. It's the people that are there now that are telling us, money? What money is that? But in any event, our legislators and everyone else remembers we were promised $1.5 million for expansion of parking spaces at Littleton Station. In the meeting, they said it would probably cost them $500,000 to add the 61 spaces that are shown in this conceptual plan. That may work out fine. If they've got $500,000 that they can make available for it, that's fine. We need the spaces, the money's not going to us. But because there's a doubt about, programmatically, the MBTA's emphasis is on maintaining the stations that they have rather than expanding. Maintain first, expand later. In a number of recent discussions, and including the May 30th meeting that Chairman DeCoste was able to attend, the MBTA has floated the idea of, well, what if the town did the work, the construction work, and then was repaid with future parking revenues? To which my answer is, well, let's see what that deal looks like. I mean, I think we've seen ourselves as being a partner to increase parking spaces, and if because of the MBTA's finances, they need to have something off book, I don't understand how that works, but if they think that it can happen better by being off book and that we get repaid from revenue streams that never show up on their coffers, I'd like to see what that looks like. I'd like to see what the.
I gotta see what that language looks like, because that sounds like a recipe to
I'd
just
like
get
to see what the
screwed.
written agreement looks like and have the attorneys look at it. So let's talk. Okay, you have our attention, we'll talk about it. If you can throw in some resident-only parking spaces for Littleton, maybe. It's one of the ideas we've floated. So we'll be getting more information on that idea.
Can I tell you,
Sure.
I'm not excited by the idea of resident-only parking spaces, because my guess is long-term, they cost more to enforce than they actually generate in revenue.
It would be difficult to enforce, yeah, it would be
I
difficult.
mean,
to
I
enforce.
like them in
Yeah.
concept, I
Yeah.
would love to have that, but ultimately, I think we end up as losers in that deal.
Yeah, the way, if we were to move to resident-only spaces, I can guarantee you that it would be, the permit that we issue to residents would be a license to hunt for a space. It would not be a guarantee of a space. That is, if we had 50 spaces, we're not going to just sell 50 permits. That's not how it works. I
think
We can get into
Chase
that.
is onto something. You start selling the
Yeah.
permits and people don't find spots, who's gonna be fielding the calls?
Yeah,
You
you're
are.
gonna, I mean,
Or
we're
we
not,
will.
yeah, we don't have to get into the weeds about it, but if that's an issue that you want to pursue, we can pursue. From a revenue standpoint, you're absolutely correct that having no restrictions on the parking would be a guarantee of the revenues.
I'm great with whatever ideas are on the table, I just want to
I would think
express
it-
my skepticism of the MBTA fulfilling their obligation to pay us back over time. That makes me nervous.
Well, I've been here long enough to remember Lieutenant Governor Salucci,
Yes.
Lieutenant Governor standing at that site saying, we were getting a new station out at the Mass Wildlife acreage, and that's where it was gonna go. And the MBTA was all there, and
And it didn't happen.
No.
Yeah, didn't happen. So anyway.
People at MBTA didn't want it.
Right, and so we're engaged in discussions with the MBTA. My hope would be that they will find at least $500,000 that it's going to cost them to add the 61 spaces. For as much as they might like the idea of the town doing it and repaying us later, they want the parking too. And we operate, frankly, at the speed of government, of local government, which is that we have town meeting twice a year. And they wanted to build these spaces, and I've explained this to them from a practical matter. If you want these spaces up by the end of the summer, we don't even have another town meeting until October to appropriate money to be repaid later.
Are they well acquainted with the, I mean, not that this should have any problems clearing our wetlands bylaws, but certainly they're gonna have to apply for a waiver to be within the 50 feet and all of that stuff. Are they generally aware that that's got a couple hoops to jump through?
Yes, well, in terms of their own 61 spaces that they want to build, that
Green should be more
that
than
they are,
familiar with
yeah,
that.
they toured the site, that Amy walked
Oh,
the
sorry,
site with
Amy
us,
was there too.
there, so the Conservation Commission is aware of where the issues are. With respect to the development of the net increase of 50 spaces on the other side, on the land that would be donated from the K subdivision, that is more challenging in terms of realignment of Grimes Lane. You don't get a full 50 spaces if you adhere to the 50-foot no-build area. And so that's an issue which.
But nonetheless, I think that can clear the waiver requirements. Certainly, there's a demonstrable public good associated with that in terms of safety and,
Yeah, it makes
public
it
transport. But
it makes it a vastly safer intersection at the railroad crossing.
Do we know how many spaces we need? Do we know on average how many spaces we're short?
If
I
we
think it's a-
doubled them, I mean, if we built another, if we built another 200, if there were to be another 200, they would easily fill up. There's no
Is that
doubt.
much of a shortage?
No.
the number of people that go to Acton every day just to
Really?
catch the
I mean,
train.
our
Right.
catchment areas, like from Leominster headed this way,
Right.
and people stop at Littleton, and if they can't park there, they keep on going. And the point that I've raised with the MBTA is, if they're concerned about the congestion at Alewife, they ought to make sure that as many cars get off the road in Littleton as they can by finding a place to park,
Right.
so that it should be part of their mission to help us expand parking in
Right.
Littleton.
And there's another project before the planning board, correct, that's offering parking, additional parking?
That's right, yes, that
Shaw.
yeah, the Nordblum property.
Right.
Is Doug Shaw was also at our March 30th meeting along with Dave Guthrie. And so both developers had a chance to pitch their plans and to share with the MBTA and all of us what they're doing. And then there are also many more spaces. I forget what the count is for Doug's
what his
plan, but
was,
there,
yeah.
there's this proposal for some significant additional spaces that I think his plan is to lease them
Right.
out, so there's a lot going on, a lot that we're pursuing to try to expand parking, which is one of the board's goals. And then lastly, the last update is to happily announce that we figured out a way to move forward with commuter rail, the Littleton Westford commuter rail shuttle, which the Board of Selectmen had approved back in September for a request to go to the Montechusett Regional Transit Authority, that the pieces that we had to put together, the model we were proposing to do was to press into service the Council on Aging shuttle in the morning and afternoon. And when the first shuttle got into an accident, and then the second shuttle got into an accident, it was, all right, well, I guess this model isn't going to work. If in the long term, we've got to find a better way to do it. And the breakthrough was twofold. One, and I think it may have started at the MMA convention, and some advocating that was done with mass development. Thatcher Keyser, who was at Devon's Mass Development, in many conversations since then, Mass Development is agreeable to letting MART house MART shuttles, 22 passenger vans, at Devon's, thereby cutting out, 15-mile round trip at least, which drastically reduces what the cost of operation is and the cost that's passed on to us. So we will have, instead of having the equipment having to go all the way back to Fitchburg and then come here to start each day and end each day, it will be at Devon's. It will be located at Devon's. Site's been chosen. It could not only be the hub for Littleton Westford Shuttle, but things that might serve the other MART towns in this area, Boxborough, Harvard, other communities who don't have shuttles. And in this process, Mass Development has identified that part of its mission is to promote transportation in the region. So
Great breakthrough there.
Great breakthrough. Very, very delighted with that. The other part that was a breakthrough is the recalculated cost of the service that's going to that we've come up with, which basically is it would be for the morning and afternoon rush hour, go from Littleton Station to Littleton Common and then to Juniper and Westford. Juniper, by the way, is offering park and ride. Would offer park and ride. We've made the request to IBM. And its landlord. I don't have a no yet. I know what no sounds like. I don't have it yet from them for maybe to set aside some park and ride spaces there. But even if not there may be other opportunities for us to identify any place that a vehicle can park if it's on the route, from on King Street. The shuttle can stop, pick them up if we designate it as a stop, and then on to the commuter rail station. It would, the recalculated total cost was $73,000. That was a little steep, and I asked MART to redo their numbers and see what $50,000 would produce for service level. And what they came back is, we'll cover the difference between 50 and 73,000. So MART is putting in 23,000 to the service. Crosstown Connect has already committed a $20,000 state grant to this service, and so the other pieces would be Westford had pledged $9,000 because that's what we asked them for, and the difference is $21,000, which the way the financing works, Littleton as the host community is through our assessment to MART would pick up whatever is left over at the end. We have a $36,000 assessment on the cherry sheet that we could apply up to $36,000 in costs. If we can get corporate donations, and Juniper is among those that are putting money on the table, that could help reduce the cost. But we have the resources to be able to launch this. We have the commitment from MART and from Crosstown Connect to be putting money for the service. We've got a target launch date of Monday, June 4th, and our next steps are to be doing some specific outreach to the affected businesses and to the community at large. So it's quite a breakthrough for moving ahead. And I should say, this was what in the community compact that Littleton signed with the Baker Polito administration for the Crosstown Connect Transportation Management Association. Among the things that we were to do to hold up our end, what did the state do? They completed the reconstruction of the Fitchburg line, dual tracking. They put in a better service, They, you know, it used to be 9:30 in the morning was the first reverse commute that arrives, now it's 7 in the morning with more frequent service. So the state's held up its part, they've been giving us grants for Crosstown Connect. But what we have to do is figure out how to do the last mile. And that's what this addresses. And by working with Westford, our fellow member of the Crosstown Connect, that group is able to make grant funds available for us to write down the cost.
Can I have just one question, back to the commuter rail parking. Where does Foster Street fall with the Complete Streets program? Because if we're talking about adding maybe another additional 100 parking spaces
Yeah.
at the MBTA station, there's
Yeah.
going to be a considerable increase in traffic
Right.
on Foster Street.
Right, well, that's what we're getting, the $3.6 million TIP project is
Right.
looking at reconstructing a portion of Foster Street.
Right, right.
I mean, that it would be, I think Chris was looking at a phased approach to how far on Foster Street can we get. We had applied for a much longer stretch of Foster Street, and
Yeah, all the way
which
down
would
to
have cost.
Harwood, right, or-
Right, I thought at one
Yeah.
point there was talk of expanding
Yeah,
it
which
all
would
the way
have
down to
cost, I
Harwood.
don't know, was that over $10 million, certainly?
Right, right.
And we had to, and so we worked with MassDOT to scale it down to a lower number.
Right.
From what we know about the Complete Streets program per se, that's not going to be a funding source for roadway reconstruction. That's why we're having to target, you know, the pedestrian things and the bike paths and the bike lanes. But the TIP project that can be a source for significant state funding. But but I think the idea was to encourage people to access the station from Taylor Street. If, you know, folks are coming from, you know, off of Route 2 to then go to the commuter rail station, that the improvements need to be made on that portion of their path that gets them to the commuter rail station from Route 2.
Right. I just don't know now, if you're sitting at the Four Corners when the train, you can tell when the train's dropped off passengers, because the volume of traffic going down Foster Street to the Four Corners is considerable.
Yeah.
So,
And I think part of that is, to a question Paul asked me on something else, that's, I think there's some serious community policing that can be done to help better address those issues.
But it's a reality, and it's probably not gonna change. We have to find a way to cope with it.
And we can look at it, it's all a matter of priorities. And if it's, you know, we have a budget that we do on roadway improvements, and if we need to realign our priorities in order to do something rather than something else.
right. It's just something to consider, I feel, if we're gonna increase the parking availability like that in that part of town.
You know, I think right after town meeting, we have a number of transportation issues that we need to jump right back on.
Right.
So lots to report, and I guess I hadn't even put up the map, but the map will be available online as well. And,
Oh, we have a question too. Mr. Sanders?
I'll let him go ahead with his report.
You wait too long, we're gonna be adjourning, George.
Well, through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Bergman. On MBTA, they are entity of the state. Right now, they charge for the handicap parking down there. So I'm wondering, when you go in and they want to do these extra parking spaces down there, that they put handicap parking down there at no charge and take the charge away from the ones they got down there. Because in Acton gives you handicap parking without charging you at the MBTA there. So a lot of people leave from here that's got handicap, they go down there and catch the train down there because they charge you. I got a ticket down there, and didn't quite understand the system when they put it
Yeah.
in down there, but I called the MBTA.
Yeah.
So they forgave me for the ticket, but the state statute, Acton complies with the state statute, even though they're MBTA
Right.
area down there. And I think that they should do the same thing for Littleton down there.
Are you on the Disability
Yeah.
Commission? I'm going to meet with you tomorrow at 12:15, so I'd be delighted to
Wonderful.
continue the discussion then.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Perfect suggestion. All right. We do have minutes.
You have minutes.
Yep.
January
January
22nd.
22nd.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move that
Madam
the Board of
Chair.
Selectmen vote to approve the meeting minutes of January 22nd, 2018.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Is there another motion out there?
Adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Ayes have it.
Thank you.